So quite recently there were some leaked details regarding the return of none other than Ezio in the upcoming Assassin's Creed Hexe. Now in this video I wanted to talk about a theory about how Ezio will return to the series, because I have thought about it and not much makes sense. There is one scenario that may connect it all together, but it is just a theory, so please take it all with a grain of salt, because let's be honest, I am most likely wrong, but it's still a fun discussion. Before I get into it though, let me know what theories you have for how Ezio will return. And I want to say a massive thank you to my channel members for the extra support, as it is always appreciated. Anyway, let us begin. So before I get into the main point of this theory, I need to explain some of the leaked information first. According to the leaks, the protagonist of Assassin's Creed Hexe is supposedly called Anika, and she's said to be a descendant of Claudia Auditore. Now before going further into that, it's important to know where and when Hexe is rumoured to take place, because this could actually connect the theory together in a big way. The game is apparently set during the European witch trials in Germany. If you look into the European witch trials, the peak years of the prosecutions were between 1560 and 1630. That time frame is really important because according to the leaker, the main setting of the game is Würzburg, Germany. What makes that interesting is the fact that there was a real historical event called the Würzburg Witch Trials, which took place between 1625 and 1631. Because of that, I honestly think there's a very high chance that Hexe could be set during those exact years. If that ends up being true though, then Ezio would have been dead for around 101 to 107 years by that point, meaning there's no way he could physically appear in the story. At least I don't think he could. Anyway, with that in mind, I feel like the only two maybe possible ways Anika could interact with Ezio would be through some kind of Isu artifact or through herself. I know saying through herself is very vague, but first let's talk about the Isu technology. The first thing that came to mind was the memory seals Ezio used in Revelations, but after Ezio finished with the 6 seals Altair used, they were hidden beneath Sophia's bookshop in the Yerebatin cistern by the Ottoman assassins. You could argue that Ezio may have discovered more memory seals later on and put his own memories in them, but honestly I highly doubt it, and even if he did, memory seals wouldn't make sense for the leaked cutscene dialogue, as Anika and Ezio seem to talk to one another, which I don't think would be possible through memory seals, as they only allow you to relive memories. So the only other explanation in this regard would be some different type of Isu technology that we haven't seen before. Another thing I started thinking back to was when Ezio sees the projection or illusion of Altair in Revelations. I tried researching exactly how that happened, but there's never really been a solid explanation. Some people believe it wasn't actually Ezio seeing Altair, but rather Desmond through the Animus. I honestly don't buy that theory though, because you can clearly see Ezio physically reacting and looking towards Altair in 2 separate scenes. One is during the fight where he gets distracted, and the other is right before he's about to be hanged. The theory that makes the most sense to me is that Ezio's ego sense had become so strong by that point that he was starting to perceive things differently because of his connection to it. If that is somehow the case, then maybe Anika could be extremely in tune with her eagle vision, allowing her to see visions of Ezio and even interact with him. Again, it's probably very unlikely, but it's still possible. This is what I meant when I said she could see and perhaps contact Ezio through herself. So this would be the end of that theory. If she is so in tune with her eagle sense, then that could explain it. There wouldn't really need to be anything connecting it all together. However, if we go back down the route of some kind of technology being passed down through generations until it eventually ends up in Anika's possession, then the next question is, how would it even get to Germany if the Auditore family lived in Italy? For that part of the theory, we need to go back to Claudia Auditore. We know that Claudia had at least one child with the captain of Mario's mercenaries in Monteregione, who she later married. She became pregnant sometime in 1488. For some reason, I just have a feeling that Claudia's child may not have had children of their own until much later, maybe sometime shortly after 1524 when Ezio died, even though they would have been in their 30s by then. If that were true, then there would probably only be another 3 generations between Claudia's child and Anika, or perhaps 4 generations if Claudia's child had a child before 1524. That would make Claudia either Anika's great-great-grandmother or maybe even her 3rd great-grandmother. So if that's the case, then who are Anika's parents, and why doesn't she have the Auditore surname? Well, if you watched my video on the entire Auditore family, you'll remember the last character I talked about was Fabrizio Auditore, who appears in the Assassin's Creed Fragments, The Witches of the Moors novel. In that story, Fabrizio is an assassin who dies while dueling a Templar named Francois Asquer. What caught my attention is that the story takes place during the Laborde witch hunt in France, which happened in 1609, which is only about 16 years before the Würzburg witch trials in nearby Germany. That made me wonder, what if Fabrizio Auditore is actually Anika's father? Maybe during his travels he met a woman and had Anika with her. Then after Fabrizio died, Anika's mother returned or travelled to Germany and raised her there. What makes this theory even more interesting is that one of the Hexe leaks supposedly included dialogue between Ezio and Anika. In the leak, Anika says, "That white hood, it's like the one in my mother's drawings." And Ezio replies, "She wanted you to have a life." If this theory was somehow correct, that dialogue could actually fit perfectly. Maybe Anika's mother was also connected to the assassins, but after Fabrizio died, she wanted to keep Anika away from that life entirely. This could also potentially explain why Anika doesn't carry the Auditore surname, as her mother wanted to do everything she could to stop Anika finding out about her lineage. Then later on, certain events pulled Anika back into it anyway. As for the artifact that lets her see Ezio, maybe her mother hid it away after Fabrizio's death and Anika eventually discovers it herself. An issue that could potentially bring this theory down is that I do not actually know much about the events of the Witches of the Moors novel, as the novel has only been published in French. So, because of me not reading it just yet, there could be more to Fabrizio that I do not know about. I know this theory is definitely a stretch and is probably very wrong, and I'm probably just going nowhere with it, but honestly I think it would be kind of a cool idea, especially because it would expand on Fabrizio, who is a really niche character in Assassin's Creed lore. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, and remember to leave your own theories too, as I may include them in a video if I get enough comments. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching the video, as well as to all my channel members for your additional support, as it is always appreciated and helps out more than you know. I hope you have a great rest of your day.